Real quick, Israel, won't be a long out video. Finding out the truth, or the truth finding you, is like being reconnected with your father. It's like, feels like you, when you didn't know who your father was, you finally know who your father is. You know, um, it's like everything that you thought about yourself and your people as an outcast, not belonging to anywhere, you finally know that there is a place for you. And of course, the devil doesn't like that. You know, and starting with Pastor Hart, he did coin this the year of the apostates, sellouts, agents, and everybody should probably knows my testimony by now. And when you're young coming in this truth, you look back at I call One West, code word One West for old school. When I say old school, I'm talking about One West. And you do have memories, especially when you're young, and it's the 90s. A lot of stuff was going on in the 90s. You had a lot of conscious rap, a lot of conscious R&B. You had neo soul, that type of thing. You had, J clothing lines, magazines, and all that. Really started from the 80s into the 90s. The 90s kind of was the height of that. So it was good times, man. Then you go to your first Passover. You meet brothers, so-called Black, Latino, Native Americans, and you're, so to speak, like into a military, and council and all that. That's when, you was like, man, before you go into the sanctuary, you definitely have to have your, I'm not saying that's not like that now, but it would, definitely had an edge on them back then. But it was exciting at the same time. Really, for me, waking up and even being a part of this, with being called into this by someone I knew when I was 14 years old. It feels more like home. It feels more like definite for sure that this is us. So, you have a setup, you have a church, you have a camp, and you go about it, so to speak, shoot for the stars as far as, you wanted to be a part of a great ministry. But without GMS, there'll be no remembrance of One West, And I say that too because, GMS, starting with the apostles on down, Apostle Tahar, Gabar, Rakah, Ramlab. Of course, it was a One West breakup, but they set a definite order of a reestablishment of a new kind of version, and not so much new as into, disrespect to the Most High, but following these new things that's coming up on the earth, such as the MOTB and surfacing of things, of these, would it be considered new things? It's definitely a different wavelength. So, if I didn't come into GMS, I don't know where I would be, man. A lot of people like that old feel of One West, with the, 5-star general, 5 shield, all that order stuff. and I get it, but I really don't get it when it comes to starting to break down scriptures the way you want to, and not saying the names of Yahweh Yahushai, and in more of a worldly fashion, being like 20, 30 years, almost 40 years later, starting with the apostles. So definitely now people are trying to come back saying, and just like them celebrities, like how old school, who shot Tupac and who was there. That's what these ninjas are doing, man. Washed up and then become none of their life. So they's like, well, let me do this. I was there. I was there with I saw everything. And I saw enough, I met some great people, I feel. And they're no longer in the truth. But at the time, they served a purpose. Anyway, we can talk about that all day. So, these things, and it talks about you're going to need a teacher to teach you again. Because new things are happening up on the earth. It even says that at one point in the scriptures, a new thing shall compass, a new thing should come about a man, a woman shall compass a man. So even though nothing's new under the sun, there's still new things that's happening environmentally, elementally, with the times. It says Hebrews 5:12, for the time ye ought to be teachers, you have need that one teach you again, which be the first principles of the oracles of the Most High, and are become such as have need of milk and not of strong meat. So this would have been, to a lot of Israelites from One West, if they're still around, the MOTB would have been meat to them. They would have been, oh, no, I don't know about that now. Or even going back with the apostles, with the Cornelius thing. Now, I remember this sign right here. And I remember it being on sheets of paper to pass out. This sign right here. That's one of the original signs. And it wasn't, ISUBK wasn't a staple a name for us back then. It was Israelites Universal or Practical Knowledge. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Israel University of Universal School of Practical Knowledge. They didn't say ISUBK as a camp back then. So, camps started becoming their own name, so to speak, when the breakup happened. And we were still under the banner of here in Oklahoma, and what was that, 1995? We was still under the banner of the military order. And I think I left the school. I don't know when the breakup happened, but I left the school like in 1998. So, and because of stuff happening in the school, like that's when women can come around, they could sit in the midst, in class there was no women, but, after that, women be around it. everywhere. You see them and they're passing. You might hear rumors. You might hear things about your leader. He was committing adultery. It was just a lot of going on. Overworking Israelites, taking the money and all that. You know, um, hard, making it hard. You have a 9-to-5 job, but still got to work for them on a door-to-door basis, or set up at the mall to sell incense and all that, and stay on your, post and all that. And I didn't really mind because I was young and you had the energy for it. And you just love to be a part of it. But you start seeing certain things go on, you were like, nah, this ain't right, man. The only time that I saw something that was right in my spirit was GMS. And that was picking up at 2000, and I started watching 2007. Then I joined the LA camp, the Mawatazak and Barak. And there was certain structure had to be structured, for the outcome of that, to put serious men on a level and order. And I kind of became a child. I kind of became a high school dude again to that. You know what I'm saying? I just like shit. I'm just glad I'm connected with the truth again. I'm glad somebody's still out there teaching and out there on the highways and byways. I don't got really nothing to say. I'm falling in line. So, it's a humbling thing. And I've been with them brothers ever since. But now I'm back here, in Oklahoma's. But we ain't missed a beat. But I mean, starting with GMS, there's no direction, guidance without the apostles. That's, I could personally speak as a man and all that. But we already know these people that went back into the world, man. They went back into the world, and they just want to be seen for one more time, or, and say their piece, and, act, saying I was there, it doesn't really mean anything. They're not teaching, they're not on highways and byways, they're not warning Israel. It doesn't mean anything. But, for sake of pointing it out and, being edifying because of these things, pointing them out that, hey, don't be sidetracked by these guys that pop back up, and other pop-up camps, because they're not in it for the truth's sake. They're not in it for righteousness' sake. They're in it just to, have their 5 minutes of fame, whatever, and to say that, they were a part of it. They probably still telling their girl, like, yeah, I used to be a part of it. I used to be I'm the one that was reading for Apostle so-and-so, I'm the one that, yeah, that doesn't hold weight, man. It's about what we're doing now, and it's about the end of these times and prophesying about them. So all that dream of and that good times, so to speak, and reminiscent of One West and the old school back then, yeah, you can have your little, time where you reflect sometimes. But what's going on now? What's happening now? Where are we now as Israelites? And GMS is holding the torch, holding that banner. There are still groups out there, and still making certain moves, being present in certain places, areas, but it's a lot of it's for show too, man. We really trying to get out of here. We really trying to establish righteousness and want a righteousness established on earth. So for some, GMS may be stumbling block, an enemy. But as a man, and I feel that I'm a spiritual man, coming from a young man, they're, they're the ones that reserve men like me, or the reason why I've gained my knowledge and gained growth in this truth. The reason why I feel like there is some importance to my existence as well as other brothers' existence. Other brothers, leaders, and heads of all camps, major camps. L.A., Chicago, New Orleans, New York, New Jersey. Even in Germany, Bahamas, Trinidad, and all those places, Atlanta, all those places. It's it's an importance to your existence, because we're the only ones that's fighting for righteousness on this planet, man, on this whole planet. I mean, the deep in the getting your hands dirty, right, for righteousness. So, it says the treat your elders as the fathers, and that's what I heard the first time I heard the truth. It was like my father was talking to me. And when I left the old school for a certain period of time, there was no internet, there was no YouTube, of course. So you can't just connect like that. You can't find nobody like that, And back then, we was going to go to the New York Passover, but Cali was more convenient, so we went to the Cali Passover. But we were under that spirit and vibration of the old school at One West. But when you get disconnected, you can't find nobody. And then when you get reconnected, you're like, man, this is it. We're still doing it. It's still out there. And it's like your father called you back again. Elders. It's gonna be. Damn, how's it worded? Elders as fathers. I'll close out with this, man. I didn't even want to make it this long. Yeah. And treat rebuke not an elder. Yeah, man. Gotta put the whole thing in that slot. 1 Timothy 5:1, it says, rebuke not an elder, but entreat him as a father, and the younger men as brethren. So that's what it feels like. It feels like your father's calling you again. Hey, I'm still here for you, And when you're young, you're just going with it, but it's great unto you and it feels good. But when you start reaching the opposition of battling demons and, learning more and growing and going through trials and tribulation and afflictions and learning brother spirits and all that, it couldn't just be because you're oppressed and say, I just want to be a part of something. Because when you do join this truth, you're in more, you experience more affliction than you were when you wasn't in the truth. So these devils will say, well, he just want to be a part of a black cause, and and because the black people, they grew up from the ghetto, they were never loved, had enough, so they just join in this because they want to be a part of something. That's not true. Because if that was the case, why would you want to be a part of something that's going to be more affliction for you? It's going to be, more, you lose everything. You could lose your family, and I'm not talking about death-wise, I'm just saying they don't want to mess with you no more. Your wife, your children come against you, your job if they find out. So these devils are liars, man. And they use that race card subliminally, knowing it's about race. And they say we're the racists. It's about race. And that's even vocab's hang up. Like he say, well, he want to save Edomites, and he want to prove GMS wrong by, stating pretty much that we hate Esau, and that's not biblical. We're gonna rule, and that's not biblical. Well, tell you what, with all this black power stuff, growing up, all this black independence, cultural wise, when we felt good about ourselves, when we had such, so to speak, an identity with blackness, they didn't have a problem with it as much as they have a problem with the truth of us being Israelites. So that should raise an eyebrow, being like, so now that we really found our heritage and truth, these devils are coming at us. Because we could be Muslim. I don't think Malcolm X and even prominent key people of Muslim religion, I don't think they got no backlash from Edomites, so-called white people, and guys like this. It's only when you're an Israelite, so some definitely up with that. It's definitely some suspicious about that, and we know what it is. We know what it is. These are advocates for the devil. These are Satan's minions. So, and the reason why I bring up the One West thing, because sometimes you gotta know where you're from to know where you're going. And the origin of us being grounded in the truth, no matter how it started. It could be in a little shack, in the ghetto, wherever it started. And how it's going and how it's going to end, almost like somebody growing up and you didn't never know they was going to become this magnificent artist because they were young and they didn't have no direction. As soon as they got direction, so to speak, got wings a little bit to do things, they became great. And that's what these people honor. They honor greatness. They honor celebrities. They honor icons. They honor legends. But when it comes to the truth, we can't be legends. We can't be icons. We can't be, respected, honored. Because at the end of the day, when they find out you found what you're looking for, and it points out the enemy, it points out the devils themselves, it points out wickedness, then, then convicted within themselves, they say, well, who are you to judge? And you're doing the Bible, speaking the Bible the wrong kind of way. So we're here to combat that. Well, that's cool. But you're fighting against God, not man, because we listen to him. This spirit is of the Father. And GMS, they're of the Father. Yahweh Yahushai. They're not of man. And all the camp my whole camp of the old school, they out of the truth. They didn't go on the highways and byways. And one of the excuses was one of the main leaders, I think third in command, he told me that he don't want to be under a man. So I guess you rather be under the system because you're going to have to be under somebody. Anyway, hope it is edifying to the next video. Shalom. Oh, and giving all praises. I forgot, because this is a continuation of videos, so giving all praises to Yahweh by Hashem Yahushai by Hashem Rakakadash, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahushai, double honors to the apostle, elder bishops, great millstone. Much salutation to the brother teaching word for the hopeful elect, soon to be the elect, most high will to the hopeful extended elect, shalom, blessing, mother, man, women, and children. GMS is pretty the only camp standing that's in full respect of guiding Israel into getting out of here and getting out of here the right way. Anyway, shalom.